Hey everybody, welcome back to the Mental Health Chick. So happy to be here tonight. I know that I have been gone for a few weeks and I'm happy to be back. So I'm just going to chat here a little bit while we wait for some folks to show up. I'm so happy to be back. I went on a lovely vacation. I took some time off to kind of work on myself. And yeah, I'm coming back to you guys tonight with some new teaching around spirituality and mental health. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Mom Sally. Thank you for joining. We are just kind of chatting here and hanging out for a couple of minutes while we wait and see how many people show up tonight. But we are going to talk tonight about spirituality and mental health and how those things interconnect. You maybe have seen some of the posts by Emily from the Mental Health Chick. She's been doing some great posts this week around spirituality and how our mind, body, and spirit are all connected. And I couldn't agree more. She's put some really great content out there for us this week. Hey, Emily, and she is with us tonight. Happy y'all are here. So let's go ahead. Let's see. Emily, we've always wondered, how do we bring you on video? There's an option to bring you on video. I won't do it tonight, but maybe next time. Emily and I talk a lot about spirituality and mental health and where the Mental Health Chick is heading. And this topic is a hot topic in all of our meetings. And so tonight, we just want to bring it to the forefront. So let's go ahead and kick it off. The title tonight is simply Exploring the Connection Between Spirituality and Mental Health. So one of the things we know that when our spiritual needs are not met, we don't feel balanced. And so when they are met, we experience balance and our mental and physical health thrive. So when we're out of balance, we experience this inner conflict. Maybe you guys have been there, right? Which can lead to harmful self-talk and unhelpful behaviors and coping strategies. So now when we start talking about this, we talk about, all right, well, what if we're working with someone who doesn't believe in God, or they believe in a different religion than maybe the one that I practice or believe in? We're going to dive into all of that a little bit tonight. We're going to give you kind of a taste of that. But we're going to start with this idea that body, mind, and spirit are intertwined. So what is a spirit? You know, people have different definitions of spirit, and some maybe refer to it as the soul. What do you think it is? Is it just the spirit, or do you believe that there's a soul? That's a question that you have to ask yourself as you work out what you believe and why you believe it around this major part of us, which is our spirits. So spirit is defined by the lovely Webster Dictionary as a non-physical part of a person, which is the seat of emotions and character. Wow. So our spirit can inform our emotions, and our emotions also have a two-way relationship with our thoughts. Hi, Carrie. Thanks for joining. So as a mental health counselor, I start listening to this and I'm like, okay, we talk about how our thoughts impact our emotions, which impacts our behavior. Good old cognitive behavioral therapy, if you're familiar with that. But when you throw the spirit in there as well, there's really a fourth part. And our emotions can be impacted by what's going on in our spirit. So we know already that our thoughts and our feelings impact what we eat, how much we move our bodies, the activities that we choose, who we choose to interact with, what we talk about. But y'all, the spirit is intertwined with all of it. So I want to start off by saying, you know, we all have biases when it comes to talking about the spirit and the soul, and I'm going to share mine tonight because I feel like that's fair and it's honest and it's authentic. And if you've listened to any of my other trainings on here, you already know I am a Jesus girl. And that means I identify as a Christian. But even the word Christian is a little bit skewed at this point in our culture. If you agree with that, give me an amen. I was talking with Emily and I said, I'm out on TikTok now and I post some videos out there, but I also watch a lot of videos. And it's really twisty out there. You'll watch one video that's all about deconstructing Christianity, and the next is all about how Jesus is the answer. And, it is confusing. And I think you have to know what you believe and why you believe it. No matter what you believe about body, mind, and spirit, you need to be able to understand it and defend it. So one of the things that I think I can safely say we, the team here at the Mental Health Chick, believe is that this coaching platform, we all agree that we believe and trust in God. And so that is kind of a bias that I have, but I'm going to try to give you some education tonight about just the difference between spirituality and religiosity. They're two really different but connected ideas. Because I think that's important. So if you're, listening to this training and you're like, I'm not sure what I believe about the spirit and the soul, I'm going to try to lay out just some really good facts tonight and then talk about a little bit more about how those things are intertwined and how it shows up in our lives. So let's start with the word spirituality. It's super multifaceted. Some use it interchangeably with the word religious. How many of you have ever been confused about the difference between the two? I know I have been. Working in community mental health and in public education, I have had the privilege of getting to know people from all walks of life. And I've had to learn about different religions, but also what other people see as spiritual. And I think after, learning and researching, I do agree they are different but related. So the word spirituality is really talking about deeply held feelings and beliefs. And it refers to this broad, personal, and subjective experience of seeking meaning, purpose, and connection with something that's greater than yourself. I really appreciate the word personal there. Even inside the Christian faith, we talk about having a personal relationship with God. And that is where already saying that Christianity is a religion kind of starts to break down. Because really, it's about relationship as well. So it's a little bit of both. Let's keep going. So spirituality often focuses on that inner experience, your personal growth, self-realization, and exploring universal questions about life, like, where do I go when I die? And it can even impact kind of how you perceive and view reality. It can be pursued both within and outside of the framework of an organized religion. So here are some concepts around spirituality. This is just super high level. It's personal. I think we kind of already covered that, but the emphasis there is on personal experiences, introspection, self-reflection, and it incorporates diverse cultures, philosophies, and even mystical traditions. Within the realm of spirituality, you can have everything from Christianity, mysticism, tribal beliefs, just to name a few. There's a whole gamut. So that kind of goes to the second part, which is that it's very, very broad. Spiritual beliefs can include concepts like higher power. So if you're like me and you've worked in anything helping people through addictions, we talk a lot about a higher power. And it can also be something called the divine. But it's not necessarily specific to religious doctrine. I remember when I was working more in substance abuse, this was like 20 years ago, when we talked about higher power, we would talk with them, if you don't believe in God, then what do you believe in? Because that is what you're kind of spiritually looking to for strength and purpose. Number 3, spiritual practices focus on that inner growth. So it's going to be things like self-awareness, mindfulness, finding meaning and purpose in life. And the emphasis is on developing those values and virtues. Now, I will say, as somebody who identifies as a Christian, I relate to this. This sounds very much like what I work on in my personal walk with Christ. It's also what other people work on, though, in their different religions and spiritual practices. Even mindfulness, which is, really rooted in meditation partly, also partly in just some Eastern thought, is actually a mental health practice. We know that people that meditate and practice mindfulness are healthier, and they're more aware. All right, so to clarify, here's some examples. Consider someone who prays to God, but also enjoys connecting to nature. Both activities, praying to God and experiencing nature, can be experienced as a spiritual activity. Spiritual activities can include breath work, meditation, New Ageism, chanting. Some even consider yoga to be a spiritual practice. And again, that can be something that some religious people would say, oh, that's not okay to practice yoga. Whereas other people will say, oh my goodness, yoga's been so powerful for me, even in my Christian walk or my religious walk, because it's taught me about meditation and breath work, being in the moment and connecting with a power outside of myself. All right, so that is spirituality. I see some amens and yeses in there. So now let's talk about religion. So religion is defined as a particular system of faith and worship, generally involving the belief in and worship of a supernatural power, especially God or gods. Religion often informs a person's belief system about how they live their lives and where they're going to go after they die. In many religions, there are also sacred texts. So, I know that the two that I am the most familiar with are the Holy Bible from the Christian sect, and then there is the Quran for Islam. And there are many others. Those are just the two that come to my mind. But in those particular religions, those scriptures are considered sacred and authoritative. Authoritative is important, right? Some people spiritually might believe that meditating helps them calm down, but they don't necessarily attribute that to a higher power that has authority. Okay. All right, so here are some specifics. Religions are typically super organized. There's specific beliefs, teachings, rituals, and practice associated with the faith tradition. There's also usually there's a hierarchy of structure and power, honestly. That is a whole other video where we're going to talk in the future a little bit about how church hurt, religious hurt, can actually be linked to mental health issues. That will probably be our next training, but this is where we kind of start to get into that, is where we have these organized belief systems where there's people with a lot of power. Power can always be abused. That's not to make any blanket statement, though. I go to church every week and I believe in the power of community in church. But we also have to be aware that whatever religion, church, mosque, place of worship that we prescribe to, that it does align with our soul and our spirit and what we believe, and we know why we believe it. Do you guys agree? The next thing about religion is community and traditions are honored. I know I love a lot of traditions. Think about traditions outside of the church that you love. Christmas trees, the Easter Bunny, 4th of July. These are traditions, and they honor something about our culture. Some of them have deeper spiritual, attachments to them. If you're a Christian, you enjoy celebrating Jesus's birth and the resurrection of Christ. Other religions celebrate other religious holidays that are very important to them. Next is the sacred texts provide guidance. People live by these sacred texts. So this can also inform morals. It defines beliefs and practices that followers are often held to. That's where that religious authority comes into, in terms of there's some accountability around those beliefs systems. And then finally, when we talk about the religious leaders and their authority, depending on the religion, the denomination, the sect, it determines who conducts the rituals, who provides the teachings, and who leads those communities. So now that you know the differences between spirituality and being religious, do you relate to one of those or both? Feel free to answer if you want to in the comments, but for me, I identify as both. I'm a Christ follower, aka Christian. I also attend a church on Sunday, and I follow those prescribed rituals like singing and communion and tithing and praying. For me personally, though, I don't get too caught up in the denominations in the Christian faith. I just really want to know that they preach the gospel. Some people, though, are very devoted to specific Christian denominations, and that's okay. So all of that said, what does that have to do with our mental health? So much, my friend, so much. So when we think about defining mental health, it's referring to a person's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how people think, feel, and act. Mental health impacts all of those things, and we just said, so does our spirit. We're starting to see some connection here. So our mental health, the state of our mental health, determines and influences how well you handle stress, how well you relate to others, what kind of choices you make in your life. Well, choices can also be very much rooted in your spirit. Good mental health is characterized by overall well-being, including positive self-esteem, the ability to cope with stress, maintain healthy relationships, and make meaningful contributions to society. When I think about all of the things that we just talked about around spirituality and religions, all of these things encourage healthy relationships, belonging. I don't know about you, but my favorite thing about community is that sense of belonging, which we get in our spiritual and religious practices. I went to the Mental Health America to see, what does Mental Health America teach about spirituality and why it's important in mental health. And I just want to share with you a few of the things that they have identified. One is it can be very reassuring to believe in a higher power, something that is outside of us. It can give us a sense of meaning and purpose. It also helps you focus on wisdom. I don't know if you've all heard me talk about this before, but I'm a big fan of Wise Mind. It's a concept in dialectical behavior therapy, and it's where we talk about how we have got our emotion mind and our logical mind. But in the middle, when we make good decisions, we use both. We use both our emotions and our logic. Because if we make a decision with just logic, it can be dangerous. If we make a decision with just emotions, well, that can also kind of be a hot mess. So we talk about making wise decisions using our mind, which is that balance between your reason and your emotion. So I think spirituality ties into Wise Mind. It reminds us, spirituality and religion, it reminds us of the good in the world. You can look up many different religions, different forms of spirituality, and you will pretty much without fail see good things happening. You will see people being served and loved and provided for. So how do we take care of our spirit? Take care of your body. Taking care of your body is taking care of your spirit. And I know that at some point, I think Emily, I'm kind of putting her on the spot, she's going to probably be talking more about the body and how we can honor our bodies in a way that also honors our mental health. So let's see. Here's some science on religion and spirituality from Mental Health America, from some of the research that they've pulled together. People who meditate, and you could put in the word pray there if you want to, have an increased activity in the feel-good region of the brain. Facts. People with strong religious beliefs recover faster from surgery. People who didn't attend religious services over the span of their life died younger than those who attended more than once a week. That's curious and interesting. I think that goes to positive habit building as well, and that connection with community. So what are you guys thinking about this stuff? What are your thoughts around this difference between spirituality and religion and how it impacts your mental health? I'd love to see some of your thoughts there in the comments. I want to dive a little bit deeper. So when I was talking earlier about AA, and they talk about believing in a higher power, they talk about addiction being part of a sickness of the soul, which addiction science, of course, also talks about it being a brain and a body issue. So I don't want you to think that I think that addiction is just about the soul, because it's not. It's about a lot of things. But when a person experiences sickness in their soul, in their spirit, they experience a feeling of difference, a feeling apart, feeling separated, as if they don't fit in their own skin. And it can manifest as loneliness, anxiety, depression, and fear. Wow. Our spirit, and taking care of our spirit and our soul, is so incredibly important. When we talk when I work with people that struggle with depression, there's this overwhelming sense of hopelessness and helplessness. Now, I will tell you, as a Christian who has struggled with anxiety and depression, I've kind of wondered why I have to struggle with that if God promises all of this peace, a peace that passes understanding. Why don't I experience that? And I wanted to touch on that tonight, just really quickly. My full testimony is going to be kind of dripped out over the next several weeks. But here's what I have come to learn. Taking care of your body, mind, and spirit requires you to pay attention to all three. So taking care of my body for me meant going to a psychiatrist, because without it, I just don't feel well. I don't feel well without those medications that have been miraculously created that help me live a good and better life. Spirit. I also know, though, if I'm not practicing my faith, if I'm not building that relationship with God for me, I start to feel out of balance. So if I were in counseling and I was going through a depressive episode and they'd say, have you prayed about X, Y, and Z? I will happily say yes. But here's what I've learned. I still have peace in the middle of depression, even if I feel low. Because I know I'm not alone, even if I feel lonely. So you see, that's where kind of like the cognitive piece, the thinking piece comes in. He doesn't leave me or you in the middle of anxiety and depression. He does depart peace upon us. But he also says, hey, you know what? This world's a hot mess, and you're going to experience the hot messedness. But I'm still going to be with you, and I will walk with you. I'm also going to show you and I give you permission to use the tools to feel better, because he wants you to feel better. So when we think, again, I just want to wrap this up around spirituality and mental health. Why does it matter? Because when we pay attention to our spirit, we find our purpose, we find our peace, and we find power. whether you want to look at that as power from God or, empowerment from within. We all need some sort of intrinsic motivation as well. It all matters. And in the coming weeks, you're going to hear my story. We're going to talk more about spirituality and religion, some of the pitfalls and the hurts and pains that maybe some people go through inside of their spiritual practices and religions, and how to heal and recover from those. I tell my friends, I never have wanted to deconstruct my faith or walk away from my religion. I have, however, reconstructed it. And friends, if you are listening to this and you are struggling with your mental health, your spirituality, your physical health, I just want you to know and hear and be encouraged that you can reconstruct these things and reach a space where you feel peace and purpose. With that, I'm going to sign off for the night. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will be back here in 2 weeks at the same time. Be well, friends. Bye.